And we are back with our breaking news coverage on the widening war with Iran here in the Middle East. I'm Erin Burnett right now in Tel Aviv. And you have, in the widening war, you had strikes already, drone strikes on a Saudi Arabian facility. You've got Israel and Hezbollah now fighting in a new front. You had Qatar saying that it has taken down 2 Iranian fighter jets. Obviously would be very significant. If so, that would be the first takedown of Iranian aircraft so far, and showing that those aircraft are obviously in the skies. Where we are now, you know, we've been hearing in some of the hours overnight some of the strikes back and forth between Hezbollah, of course, as well as the incoming missiles coming from Iran. And we hear those sirens as that happens. But the Hezbollah targets across Lebanon also being struck. We're talking about the Beirut suburbs, as well as across southern Lebanon. Meantime, Iran is stepping up strikes on Gulf capitals and other cities in the region, as I just mentioned, both with missiles as well as drones. Our teams in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, hearing explosions throughout today. And the U.S. military now says that 4 American service members have died in the fighting. Someone else dying overnight, and there have been 18 seriously wounded, as President Trump says that the number of American dead is likely to rise, perhaps substantially. I'm joined now by retired Major General Randy Manor. He's the former Deputy Commanding General for the Third U.S. Army in Kuwait. Knows as much as anyone. He also happens to be currently in Dubai, which means he's stranded along with tens of thousands who have been unable to travel due to the attacks. I mean, it's been called a hole in the sky, the world's busiest airport. The disruptions from this widening war worldwide on that basis alone. General, I very much appreciate your time. And, you know, talking to senior Emirati officials, you know, in the UAE, I understand the main focus there right now is defense, that they are trying to defend against continuing oncoming onslaughts, whether missile or drone. What are you seeing and experiencing as you look at it through your eyes, not just that you're there, but that you are, you know, the commander in Kuwait, that this is a scenario that you, I'm sure, had trained for, although perhaps never envisioned actually seeing an
military members that were killed and injured, and their families, of course, as well as the families of those military that are serving in the region. And secondly, of course, the civilians on all sides who have been killed or injured and are in great danger right now. And lastly, of course, people like myself and tens of thousands of other travelers who have been literally stuck here in harm's way. We're all stuck here. And I will tell you, it is very gracious and they are very supportive. And that is just absolutely wonderful, given that there have actually been attacks against their nation as well.
So, and obviously, no, we've talked about it, you're experiencing yourself, but my understanding is, you know, more than 20,000 travelers. Obviously, the airport itself was hit, which is truly stunning to imagine. When I saw those images, having been in that terminal so many times, it just absolutely shocking. But that they're now putting everyone up in hotels and providing everything, which I know is also the case in Qatar, another almost as important transportation hub. But General, when you see Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, saying that the strikes in Iran aren't going to spiral into something more protracted or bigger. He declares this is not Iraq. This is not endless. Do you have confidence in that?
It seems to me that the purpose and mission have been shifting over the past few days and the past few weeks. Initially, it was to ensure that they could not continue to develop nuclear weapons. Now it's about regime change. And then there's so many things that are being piled on to the mission list. It almost seems like someone Googled it before the brief to throw everything on the kitchen sink into it. So it's a little bit disconcerting. And in fact, one of the small things that does matter to tens of thousands of people here, as well as to their families, it's a little bit disheartening and a little bit envious to hear that the BBC has announced that the UK government is actually arranging transport for the British citizens to be able to extract them, whereas here for us as Americans, we feel abandoned. The State Departments have talked to 2 embassy personnel, 2 different embassies. They are in survival mode, quite frankly, because as we know, the administration reduced their budgets by almost 1/2 over the past year. So this is a difficult situation for people who are not used to being in a combat situation. And that, of course, is, quite frankly, probably 99% of the travelers that are here.
Well, I would imagine none of them would have ever expected such a thing. I mean, that's the entire brand of where you are. But I think it is fascinating and extremely important, General, what you've just said, that you think that some of the cuts are, in fact, impacting the lack of extraction for American citizens. I can only imagine how that feels. I mean, what's your as you talk to other Americans, when they see that the British are arranging something that the Americans are not?
Oh, it's extremely sad. When I was the deputy commanding general in Third Army, we would do extractions of civilians around the area whenever there was a urgent need. Now, granted, the numbers were much smaller at that time, but at the same time, we would set it up and we moved quickly and rapidly, both from the point of view of security and to get Air Force cargo aircraft into the area to extract those civilians, American civilians, no matter what. So not hearing anything from the embassies, not hearing anything from the websites, it is very disheartening. And I do appeal to everyone to call their senators and their representatives to demand that the Defense Department do this. As a military retiree, I'm not as worried about this personally because I understand that the risks here are not as substantial. But remember that for the family members of these people who are non-military, they are very, very worried, and rightfully so, about their loved ones that are here. And unfortunately, the State Department was not prepared, and it's not in the works yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, important, and I hope that those words that you're saying here are being heard. General Manor, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. We all do. And we have so much more of our breaking coverage here on the war with Iran ahead, including what could happen next. With all these uncertainties that General Manor was just referring to, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is warning that the war will not be a single overnight operation. That's next.
Standoff, the FBI, Power and Paranoia premieres Sunday, March 22nd on CNN.
I remember